today's Veterans Assembly. Veterans Day was first recognized by President Woodrow Wilson in 1919. The day was originally known as Armistice Day and marked the end of World War I, which occurred on the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month in 1918. In 1954, President Dwight Eisenhower changed the name to Veterans Day as a way to honor all American veterans, and we continue to honor veterans today. Unfortunately, throughout our history, veterans have not always been treated with the kindness and respect they deserve. Veterans returning home from fighting in the Vietnam War were treated particularly poorly, and this time is depicted in the book Okay for Now, which we have been reading in English class. Thankfully, in recent years, our nation's treatment of veterans has improved. Today we take the time to honor many of your own relatives and neighbors, and especially the 9 of our own American veterans here with us today, for their patriotism, love of country, and willingness to serve and sacrifice for all of us. So tomorrow during your day off, go ahead and sleep in a little bit, watch a little TV, but also take some time to pause and remember a veteran you may know. Think about the messages you hear today, and nothing that I can say can express how appreciative we are of the veterans on the stage, but your respectful audience behavior and full attention will speak louder than words. Now, please welcome your student council officers who will introduce our honored guests.
It is my great pleasure to introduce Mr. Montulli. Mr. Montulli served in the Navy from 1992 to 1998. Mr. Montulli raised to the rank of second-class petty officer and was deployed to Caribbean and Persian Gulf. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Montulli.
Thank you very much. When I was 20 years old, I signed up for the Navy, and I really didn't think too much about it being a huge sacrifice. And honestly, the sacrifices I was asked to make were not all that great compared to many others. Like many people who served in the armed forces, I felt like I got out of it a lot more than they got out of me. I was able to learn a trade, travel the world, develop lifelong friendships, and matured a lot in the 6 years that I was in the Navy. To be honest, it was a great time in my life, and I have many fond memories from those years. But everybody who serves sacrifices in some way, large or small. Whether it's a new father that missed the birth of their child, or the months of separation from loved ones and family, the birthday parties, holidays, graduations, baseball games, band or chorus concerts, any other number of special events they were asked to miss because they were sent overseas. These things can never be made up. By themselves, they may not seem like much, but the longer one serves, the more they and their family are asked to sacrifice. So tomorrow on Veterans Day, take a moment to think about all those veterans, their families, who were asked to sacrifice all those special moments, and often much, much more. Thank you very much.
It is my great pleasure to introduce Mr. Hyman. Lieutenant Hyman served in the U.S. Navy from 1976 to 1996. In 1992, he raised to the rank of lieutenant and was deployed to the Mediterranean and Persian Gulf. Please join me in welcoming Lieutenant Hyman.
I was given a piece of paper with 3 questions to answer for you. First question is, what do I think of Veterans Day? Well, when I sat in the audience at your age, the only thing I thought of Veterans Day was a day off from school until I served. Remember, tomorrow is not Veterans Day. Veterans Day is November 11th every year, whatever day it falls on. It's one day that we stop in America and say thank you to a veteran. What does it mean to be a veteran? It means you stand up one day and you say, I'll support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I'll obey the orders of the officers appointed over me. You know, when I did that on September 13th, 1976, I had no idea it was going to last 20 years. But when I got in the Navy, I realized that it was a group of people that wanted to work together, take care of each other, support each other, and that you had the privilege of serving your country. Today, a few of you come up and walked to me and said, thank you for your service. It was my privilege to serve. Take a look around you and notice if anybody that in your family who was a veteran, they may have different stories. They may have different ideas about it. I have some great friends that served in Vietnam that did not have great experiences in Vietnam like I did for 20 years, riding around in a submarine at the bottom of the ocean for 89 days and never coming to the surface. Or floating around in the Persian Gulf and watching the sunrises and sunsets, trying to figure out when we were going to attack Kuwait and tell Saddam to take his army and go back to where he belonged. But when you got done at the end of the war and you went into Kuwait and this family pulls up next to you in a car and asks you to get out, to hug you and say thank you for giving our country back to them, because America stood up and said, we'll go help and fight and bring back liberty and freedom back to a country where a bully came in and took over. It's kind of like what I see on the bus today sometimes. I'm your director of transportation. I don't like bullying at all. I don't like it in school, don't like it on the bus, don't like it anywhere. Because in the military, that's what we do. Is we stand up and say, here am I. I'll go in and stand in harm's way and bring back freedom. That's what veterans do. What does Veterans Day mean to me? It's a lot different from when I was in 8th grade. Today, this uniform I'm wearing is 21 years old. And when I put it on, it reminds me of so many great things that the military does. And they're still doing today. And as Mr. Montoya was sharing about the sacrifices people give, it's just not the people in the military, it's the families that are home, of not knowing when they're coming back home. And even today, I have friends that deploy that do not come home, but when they come home, we go to a military service for them, for the funeral. That's what a veteran does, is stand up, be willing to give their life for freedom. Thank you.
It is my great pleasure to introduce Mr. Bob Lambert. Mr. Lambert served in the Navy from 1943 to 1945 in World War II. In 1944, he rose to the rank of second-class petty officer and was deployed to the Philippine Islands. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Lambert.
Well, I'm glad to be here. I'm a World War II veteran, and there are not many of us left anymore. So you better get a good look at me. When I went into the military in 1943, we did not even have television sets. Can you imagine a world like that with no television? I don't know how you would exist these days without television. But what was new was radar. That was something that was very new. And I was able to get into an electronics program in the Navy. And I learned how to maintain radios and equipment like radar. And it was a very good training. I was in that electronics program for about a year. And right when I got out, it was VJ Day. And we heard about the nuclear bomb that had fallen on Japan and how the war came to an end. And we were very thankful that that war came to an end, because we thought about invading Japan and knew that that would be awful. It would be awful, believe me. And fortunately, the war came to an end. And then they shipped me overseas. Well, why do they do that? Well, you can't just bring the whole army home all at once. It would be complete chaos. So they had to bring them back one by one, or I say group by group. And people who had not been in the military that long had to be sent over to replace them and take care of things. I would add that I was not the only one in my family who went into the military. I was a family of 7. I had 4 brothers, and 3 of them went into the Army, and I was the 4th one. My father was very proud to have 4 sons in the military. So I'm thankful that I've been able to serve our country. Our country's been good to us, and we have much to be thankful for. Thank you so much.
It is my great pleasure to introduce Dr. Lerner. Dr. Lerner served in the U.S. Navy Medical Corps from 1998 to 2013. Dr. Lerner raised to the rank of Lieutenant Commander in 2011 and was deployed to Kuwait in Afghanistan. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Lerner.
Thanks. My family isn't a military family. When I went into the Navy, I was the first member of my family to join the military, so I didn't really know what to expect. I was admitted to medical school and facing a lot of debt, and I took a scholarship. I went through medical school and went through my training and then came into the military active duty. What I realized when I came into the military is that I got so much more out of the military than what they gave to me. I did get financial independence because I came out debt-free, but I had the opportunity, and I agree with what others have said, that I really felt like it was a privilege to serve. I had the opportunity to work at Walter Reed National Naval Medical Center, which is in DC, and I don't know if you know, but in the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, the wounded warriors tend to come back from overseas and come to Walter Reed. And I'm trained as a critical care doctor, so I work in the ICU, and so the wounded warriors would come back to the ICU where I was working. And oftentimes, they would still be on life support when they came back, and when they got well enough to come off life support, we would take them off the breathing machine and welcome them back to the United States, and oftentimes it was the first time they were re-greeted by their families and their spouses and their kids. And I was a part of that in caring for those men and women. And so when I deployed to Kuwait and I had the opportunity to go downrange to Afghanistan, I said, yes, sign me up. I want to know and be a part of caring for these wounded warriors farther downrange and be a part of their care. And having been trained in critical care at that point and knowing that there was a war and that our wounded warriors were being injured, I felt like there was no place on the planet that I would rather be than taking care of those guys. So when I was gone, my family stayed behind, and I want to recognize them for the sacrifices they gave while I was gone, because it's not easy to have mom gone. So Lily was in 1st grade, and Anna was in 2nd grade, and I missed that whole year. And so I think recognizing the sacrifice that families make is important. I also wanted to come here today to recognize and show maybe a different face of a veteran, because I think sometimes women, veterans, aren't recognized in the same light. So thanks for having me here. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to tell my story, and enjoy your day off from school.
It is my great pleasure to introduce Mr. Chris French. Mr. French served in the Army from 1985 to 1988. Mr. French raised in 1988. Mr. French raised to the rank of the E4 Specialist and was deployed to Herzog Base, Germany. Please join me in welcoming Mr. French.
I'm a technology teacher at the high school. When I was 17 years old, after high school, I joined the Army. But I had to have my parents sign a waiver because I wasn't old enough to do it. all I wanted to do for some reason was work with nuclear missiles and go to Germany. So the Army gave me the opportunity to do that, and I went off to boot camp. And that was my job, to protect the Fulda Gap, to prevent the Soviet Union from invading the rest of Europe. For a couple years, we drilled and practiced and did all kinds of maneuvers. And for me, I really got a chance to meet other people, and I had the opportunity to be able to work and be with other veterans. Now, what a veteran means to me is being able to connect with all these other people whose sole purpose is to protect democracy and our way of life. So on Veterans Day, I like to thank all the veterans who work to protect what we have and what they have done. Thank you very much.
It is my great pleasure to introduce Miss Blazer. Miss Blazer served in the U.S. Army since 2007. Miss Blazer raised to the rank of E5 Specialist and serves stateside. Please join me in welcoming Miss Blazer.
Hi, everybody. I'm actually a Brighton security guard at the high school. So I still serve. I started in April 1st of 2007. I left for basic training. I started off as a military police officer. My entire life I wanted to be a police officer. My whole family was police. All the guys in my family went into the military and left me by myself. I decided that I wanted to be the first female in my family to join the military and do what the guys were doing. Show them that girls can do it better, like always. So I went in. I became a military police officer after 4 years. I was active duty. After 4 years, I got sick, so I had to come home. I was out for about 6 months, and I really missed the camaraderie, the family, and everything that the military gives you. So I decided to join the Guard. I've now been in the Guard since 2011 as an engineer. I build things, and then I blow them up, and then I rebuild them. It's fun. It really is. I've learned every trade that a guy knows: plumbing, masonry, carpentry, electric. I know all that. I drive big trucks. I could probably do it all better than the guys. But I do serve stateside. I've only served stateside. I've gone on every emergency response mission that New York State has had. I just came back from the flooding. For the past 3.5 months, I was on the Lake Ontario flooding mission. Every time we have a hurricane or a bad storm or anything that happens in New York State, I'm there. I'm the first one called. We're technically considered the Minutemen, so they call us and we're there. So when people see the stickers on my car, the military stickers on my car, or they see me in uniform, they always like to come up and thank me. But I like to thank them back, because if it wasn't for the people back here taking care of my house, taking care of my dog, and taking care of everything else, when I was away taking care of the rest of the state, I don't know where I would be. So instead of saying thank you to me, I like to say thank you to them too. But Veterans Day to me means a lot more than that. Veterans Day means honoring all my brothers and sisters and all of those who served past and present, all of those who are deployed and at home, and all of those who made the ultimate sacrifice. Thank you.
It is my great pleasure to introduce Mr. Pope. Mr. Pope served in the Army from 1952 to 1954. Mr. Pope raised to the rank of first class lieutenant and was deployed to Korea. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Pope.
Thank you. I have to say I came from a family of veterans. My grandfather on my mother's side served in the Spanish-American War, and perhaps your history teacher can tell you where that was, back in 1898. My grandfather on my other side served in the First World War from 1914 to 1918. My uncle, my father's brother, served in the Second World War from 1941 to 1945, and then stayed in the service until he retired finally. Last week, I had an opportunity to go visit with my sister and her husband, who was in Korea. He was there when I arrived in Korea. He'd been in combat. By the time I got there, they'd stopped shooting, which was nice. And my brother, who was also with us last week, served in Korea, and he arrived shortly after I did. So there were three of us all together serving in Korea, basically at the same time. I think of that because as I grew up, having a military background, patriotism was number one thought in my mind, and such that at one point in my life, I was the president of a national organization of young people, your age, young people, president of a national patriotic organization of very young people, people from any age from 14 up to 21, just in my nature. So when it came time for me to go to college, I decided, well, I want to continue that tradition, so I joined what was called the ROTC, Reserve Officer Training Corps. Now this is peacetime. I thought that would be a good time. I'll just get some training. But while I was in college, and before I finished and got my commission, we were back once again fighting, and that was in Korea. So when I graduated, I got a commission, and I was sent immediately to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, where I spent a year, and then transferred over to Korea. But I was one of the lucky ones, because I was not in combat. I think of all the veterans that we see around us, and I have to remember how many of my friends who were in battery officer school with me at Fort Sill, Oklahoma in 1952, who did not come back from Korea. And I give thanks to all veterans who have served in wartime or in peacetime, for those who have made that sacrifice. I think I am correct. Somebody could probably correct me and say, this country, the United States, has been at peace since 1945. 1945. That's the last time that this country ever ended a war. And since that time, no war has been declared, although we have veterans fighting all over the world. Because a declaration of war can only be authorized by the Congress of the United States. And that has not been done, I do not believe, since 1941. Now think about the fact that, these are people who are serving at home and overseas, and I read something just the other day about the fact that of those veterans who have served, 9 out of 10 veterans serve in support units. Only 1 out of 10 is a combat veteran. But all of those background service jobs are vitally important to the nation's security. So I thank you for your invitation to be here today. I'm a couple of years younger than Mr. Lambert's here, so I didn't quite get there in 1945, but I did get, you remember he mentioned the atomic bomb in Hiroshima, and I did get to see Hiroshima in 1952. And the devastation is unbelievable, where one bomb killed 250 million people. Boom. Think about the tragedy. Think about what it means that war is not the answer. Although we all serve our country, war is not the answer. Thank you very much for your attention.
pleasure to introduce Mr. Jimmy Highsmith. Mr. Highsmith served in the Air Force from 1987 to 1997. In 1994, he raised the rank of Staff Sergeant and deployed to Desert Storm in Saudi Arabia. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Highsmith.
Thank you. Wow, that was in November 1997 actually, almost 30 years ago. My family is our military. My grandfather, after finishing college at St. Bonaventure, one of the first black commissioned officers in World War II. My uncles fought in Korea. My dad fought in Vietnam, and my daughter is currently serving in the Navy as an E6 in California. So Veterans Day to me is every day. I love all the veterans, support all the veterans, and I'm proud to be a veteran and the opportunities I've been given by being a veteran. So that was 30 years ago, yeah, November 23rd. I took that oath that Lieutenant Hyman spoke of. I don't remember the oath, I'm sorry. But anyhow. The military gave me an opportunity to see the world. I was in college initially, and I left college to go to the Air Force, and didn't like the band much and went to Air Force Intelligence. So I was a support, not a combat vet, support veteran. And again, it gave me an opportunity to see the world and meet a lot of people. And I would encourage anybody, if you don't think you can go to college, go to the military. It will give you a way of life. It will teach you military bearing. It will teach you job skills that will be invaluable to you in your later years. In my life, I've been a professional musician, and now I'm in the school bus drivers. And the successes I've had through both careers have been because of military service and what I learned in the military itself. The confidence, integrity, getting the job done no matter what. You know, anything you want to do, you can do. Put your mind to it and put one foot in front of the other, and you can make it happen. So I appreciate you guys coming here and hearing us all speak, and your support you've given us all. And I appreciate being a veteran. And I thank you for your invitation. God bless you guys all. Thank you.
It's my great pleasure to now introduce Mr. Moynihan. He served in the Marines from 1966 to 1968. Mr. Moynihan raised to the rank of Lance Corporal and was deployed to Nha Dang, Chu Lai, South Vietnam, and Okinawa, Philippines. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Moynihan.
I served in the United States Marine Corps from 1966 to 1968. Parris Island, Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, Camp Pendleton, California, Okinawa, Da Nang, Chu Lai, South Vietnam, were some of my stops along the way. Some of these places I would never have visited if it wasn't for my time in the military. It was a very challenging time in my life. During this journey, there were long hours of intense training, learning to operate all sorts of firearms, and of course, physical training. I become very familiar with military rifles and other weapons which are necessary tools of combat. Most of my time in the military was spent being a battalion armorer. An armorer would take care of maintaining and repairing all small arms. If there were any concerns with these weapons, I would have to answer for it. There was also the opportunity to meet and establish friendships with people from all over the country. So today we come together at this assembly to pay tribute to our veterans. Some of my feelings and thoughts on this Veterans Day are recognizing those who have served, pausing a moment to reflect on the importance of their combined impact on this great country and the immense sacrifice of our fallen heroes. Knowing that the country we fought for stands behind us is incredibly powerful and inspiring. Veterans Day is a time to honor not those who have fought for us in battle, but in fact, all the outstanding men and women who serve in our nation's armed forces. This year is as important as ever, and we need to remember the young men and women currently serving. So students, I would like you to consider doing one of the following between tomorrow and the end of December. Just take a walk or a bike ride to Buckland Park on Westfall Road, right here in the town of Brighton. There is a Veterans Memorial alongside of the historic Buckland House. Spend a few minutes, read the plaques, have some quiet time, and learn a little bit of history. Another idea is the Greater Rochester Vietnam Veterans Memorial at Rochester's Highland Park. Salutes the 280 military members from Monroe and its bordering counties who died in the conflict. A veterans walk at the memorial honors all living and deceased veterans. Take some time and read the inscriptions on the monuments. One note I would like to make here is November 10th, tomorrow. This Marine Corps celebrates its 246nd birthday. Give an extra salute to them, please. And thank you very much for the opportunity to be at your assembly and for your wonderful hospitality.
All right, 8th graders, that concludes the assembly, and we'll dismiss by section in a moment, but I'd ask for you just to give all of our veterans one more round of applause. Actually, please stand and salute our veterans. Thank you.